Yes. Right, well, welcome and thank you everyone for turning up to today's webinar. It's all about mediating before conflict even starts. So it's a 30-minute webinar, and then we'll end it with popping your cameras back on if you want to and answering any questions you may have. So let's start off with some formal introductions. So I'll start off with myself. Hi, I'm a workplace mediator based in Wiltshire. Long career in private sector, I would say, through from line management trainee into the HR career with lots of different diverse qualifications, from NLP practitioner to doing team facilitation, profiling, and now I work with Sarah delivering new mediators training. So I'll hand you over to Sarah.
Hello, everyone. So my first career was as a criminal prosecutor. So I had a couple of decades in the private sector. And whilst there, I trained as a workplace mediator, decided to give up the prosecuting and move into my second career as a mediator. So now I guess I'm just a woman who loves a bit of conflict, really. So I spend my time mediating, teaching people to mediate, conflict coaching, and doing workshops around conflict issues within workplaces. And one of my most able students over the years, of course, was Lizanne. So back to you, Lizanne.
Compliments get you everywhere, Sarah. Thank you. Okay, so why are we running these webinars? We've been running them since the beginning of the year, and we want to share good practice on how to manage conflict within the workplace. That there are some real life scenarios that we can share with you that hopefully you can get some top tips and take into the workplace for yourselves. We know how challenging it is managing teams, and if we can assist with that, then we certainly will. Sarah and I, as Sarah's mentioned, have worked together for quite a few years, and Sarah has been my trainer, mentor for many years. We're the opposites attract, I would say. Sarah and I both have, if you've ever done behavioural profiling, the absolute opposite ends of the spectrum. I'm a very detailed person, where Sarah is very creative, and we complement one another really, really well. Individually, we both do mediations that are two-party. We also work together to do with multi-party mediations where teams are in conflict. We deliver new mediator training. As Sarah's mentioned, we do conflict coaching, training new managers on how to have collaborative conversations, along with behavioural profiling. So we're quite diverse in our delivering. Okay, so right to the subject matter in hand. What is proactive mediation, Sarah?
Yeah, and I don't know, for those of you who've joined us today, whether you have any idea, but basically it's mediation. Okay, the proactive bit is that you do it before the conflict even arises. So it has the same approach. You know, ideally we would have joint meetings in person and allow, give people the space to actually engage as human beings and talk things through. It's got the same structure in that we would do chemistry or introductory calls. We'd then have individual meetings with the parties to really understand what they wanted and hope to achieve from the mediation and why. And then we'd have joint meeting. So its aims remain the same, namely that the people involved are going to find a way forward and an agreement that works for both of them. And I suppose the other things that are the same. It's confidential, as with any mediation. It's voluntary, as with any mediation. And it's an informal, obviously, approach. And it requires an impartial mediator. I think the key thing of what is different is the mindset. So you are approaching proactive mediation in the space of things haven't gone wrong. I'm not in conflict, but I want to use it to make our working relationship, the best it can be for this particular project, line management relationship, etc., going forward. So that's the difference. Okay, back to you, Lizanne.
Thanks, Sarah. So just sort of tail ending onto what Sarah has said is that traditionally mediation is done when things have gone wrong, the conflicts has happened, and then we're going in to fix it. We're turning it on its head and we're looking at it before it even happens. So think about new working relationships, maybe senior managers, maybe it's a board member, maybe it's a key project, or you're doing a complete restructure or change, which already instigates uncertainty, instigates new working relationships, and you haven't got the time to deal with conflict as it arrives along the route. So instead of thinking about dealing with it when it happens, think about doing it before it could even possibly be on the agenda. Having a proactive mediation means that people are going in and having open and honest conversations with a positive mindset right from the outset. Imagine having a project, they're very excited about the project, they're very geared up to have the project, and they want success, particularly if their career matters. Then they're going to go in with a positive mindset that the people that they have within the team and their working relationships are also going to be powerful as well. So it provides clarity up front, how they want to work, what matters to them, and how they handle challenges when they come up. Now, this is a small investment in the grand scheme of things if you have this at the beginning prior to any change, rather than handling conflict, which can cost thousands of pounds later on. Over to you, Sarah.
Okay, well, lots of benefits, obviously, but key things here are the proactive part of it means that it often creates better relationships than you would have had without it, and even if there wasn't a conflict. So you're being very proactive in saying, let's give this the best chance of making this work. I think what I love about it is it provides the opportunity for people to be quite innovative. Because if you're getting in right at that early stage and without the mindset of, things have gone wrong, people are often at their most creative. And by providing this sort of safe space to explore ideas and what might work for them, they often come up with things that they might otherwise not have thought about. So I think that side of it is really, really positive. Then culturally, what is the message that this sends as an organisation? It says we care about you, doesn't it? First and foremost, that is loud and clear. And we care about you as employees, but tagged on to that is we want to give you the best chance we can in succeeding. And so if you are a party to a proactive mediation, you feel valued, you feel loved as a result of that, because it's an investment in you. And I think recognising that makes people even more keen to make it work. So that whole proactive against reactive, Lizanne and I spend quite a lot of time with people where the conflict's already taken place, what we call bringing them down their mountain. So taking them from this place where they're very unhappy and blame the other person, and bringing them down to a space where they're thinking about, okay, what do I really want here and why am I upset? with a proactive mediation, they're not at the top of their mountain. We don't need to do that first bit. Rather, we're looking at, okay, what do they really want here? What really matters to them as individuals? And it stops them ever climbing up that mountain. And for critical projects, obviously, it can make such a tangible difference and cost saving in so many ways. So over to you, Lizanne, re costs.
Thanks, Sarah. Quite simply, proactive mediation is going to save money in time, costs, and productivity. Here's some start figures on how much conflict costs the industry each year, which is £28.5 billion. That cost could be formal processes, employment tribunals, legal costs, sick costs, managers' time, all swept up in there. And the stark figures of how much businesses actually invest in mediation doesn't even scratch the surface of £140 million. Flip this on its head. Instead of spending thousands and thousands of pounds or billions of pounds on conflict, spend a small amount of money investing in professionals to come in and have those proactive conversations, protect the working relationship, keep people focused, and avoid the emotional toll impacts productivity and well-being on all that are involved, because it's not just the two parties that are involved in the costings, it's the people around them. So if they're working within a team, that ripples throughout the team. You then have to get the line managers involved. You then have to get HR involved. It ripples through the business. And then you have to get professionals externally involved to deal with this. In contrast to getting somebody in and having it for first hands. Return on investment, it's significant. But whether you can see that, it's difficult to say whether conflict would ever happen. I understand that. But the risks are a lot higher going into cases. I'm sure that you're in workplaces and how much of your time is taken up dealing with conflict right now, from small little gossips to escalating and getting a bit further. So a small investment up front is a value that avoids a bigger cost further down the line. Sarah, back to you.
Okay, so is it mediation or is it a facilitated conversation? Do you know what? I don't think it matters what you call it. I think the key point is that it's proactive. So it's proactive mediation or it's a proactive facilitated conversation. If you were going to ask me to choose one over the other, I would say it's more of a facilitated conversation. And I would say that because mediation has that connotation with it that it's about a conflict. So it's probably even more positive to call it a proactive facilitated conversation. I think, in terms of who can deliver it, it's the same skill set as for other types of mediation and facilitated conversation. So as long as the person who is delivering that mediation is skilled and understands the mediation process and the whole aims behind it, and can use those skills to enable the parties to get the most out of it, then you're on to a winner as far as I'm concerned. Probably, and why I love it so much, is that it's a real focus here on transformative mediation. And when I say transformative mediation, that is focused on people taking responsibility for what they can own and what they do, is the first point. Secondly, they're taking the time to really understand the other person and where they're coming from. And the third thing that you get from this transformative approach is a longer term behavioural change. You know, if you invest in people with doing this at the beginning of a big project and it goes well, they are likely to take that to the next project, and you may not need a proactive conversation before it. They learn from it, they take it forward. So again, it's a cultural shift that it gives. So what are the risks? Well, I think there are very few. The biggest risk is that you do it badly and it ends up with a conflict rather than the complete opposite. But I think that would be simply not mediation or not a facilitated conversation. That would be something else where the person who's delivering it perhaps comes in and there is judgment, or they are engineering the agreement rather than empowering those people in that mediation to own those. So I think if you get it right from the start, you know, it's quite incredible. It's impartial, and it's transformative. What else then? What other risks? I would just say you probably want a regular review in there so that there is some form of check-in, and that can be just between the parties as to how it's going. And maybe if they put a written agreement together, they go back and just revisit and remind themselves. And what else? I think as long as the agreement, whether it's written or not, includes something about what if we feel we are going off track, we are heading to a conflict, then what are we going to do about it? So they are gatekeeping for themselves and nipping in the bud if something is starting not to work, and you don't let it escalate into something much more serious. So yeah, I mean, little risk, so much to gain, with the caveat needs to be done well. Okay. Right then, so a case study. Now, usually when we do our webinars, we have a whole myriad of case studies and we have to whittle them down and decide which one we're going to go for. With proactive mediation, I have to say I've got a lot less to choose from because unfortunately it's a really underused thing in my experience at the moment. So, but I'm going to share with you a case study I did do quite a few years back. So let me set the scene. I'm going to call the parties Andy and Jill, and they work in an organisation where they've both been employees for over 5 years. Now, they know each other as work colleagues, but they've not actually worked closely together at any time, more alongside each other, and that's about to change. So they've both applied for a divisional head role, and Jill's been appointed. And of course, understandably, Andy has been disappointed not to be successful himself. So the change now is Jill is about to become Andy's line manager. Andy remains head of his own department with his own team. So the potential challenges which we identified right from those early meetings. Firstly, they've got really different approaches to work. Jill is very analytical, she's very task focused, and Andy is a people person. And much of what he achieves, he does so through having really good relationships with others. So that's the first challenge. But as Lisanne said right at the beginning, you know, we're opposites, but you can really make that work if you understand that. The second challenge then is the recent promotion is the elephant in the room. So neither of them have spoken about that to each other. And that discussion needs to be had because they have both individually expressed concerns about working together. Next concern and challenge then is Andy's department's about to go through quite significant change. There's going to be some redundancies, and this is going to be really challenging for Andy, but also obviously for his staff. Andy's really keen to manage this in the most sensitive way possible because people are his focus. Whereas Jill's very much, let's get open, let's be open about it, let's sort of feel the fear and do it anyway and just get on with it. So you've got a real clash there, potentially. So the organisation approached me and said, could we look at a proactive mediation so Andy and Jill could talk quite freely but confidentially about their concerns, how they like to do things, what they wanted to achieve with this change taking place, and with a real hope that they could start this new relationship in a good space so that will take them through the challenges that are up ahead. Okay, so then from a practical point of view, how did I approach it? Having had the initial call then from the organisation, I then had what I call an introductory call with Jill and with Andy. It's usually only sort of 10 minutes or thereabouts, and we introduce ourselves to each other. I'll answer any questions they may have about the process, and we just talk through the logistics of what's coming next and when we're going to hold any meetings. Then I have a one-to-one meeting independently and confidentially with each of Andy and Jill. Usually takes a couple of hours. And in those, really, I want to come away with a number of things. They'll do most of the talking, but for me, I want to understand what makes them tick, really understand how they like to operate. What are their concerns about this new working relationship? And what are they based on? So are there assumptions in there? Have they brought past experience into this? What are their own red lines in terms of when they're dealing with conflict? How important is it to them to really make this work? Because that's part of the mindset of I want to do this and I want to do this well. What they think they might need to make it work. And then I spend some time helping them think about what do they think the other person's wants in this? What might their priorities be? What might their concerns be? Because as we know, if ever there is tension, we tend to focus on our own perspective, and sometimes it's quite easy to forget there's another human being involved who may feel either the same or differently from yourself. And then I just prepare them for the joint meeting. So do that with each of them, and then we look to get together. For me, it's really key this joint meeting is in person, unless there are really good reasons why that can't happen. Because there is something about sitting in the room and, what do they say, seeing the white of the other person's eyes, but picking up those small body language interactions that do help us as human beings to connect. So what's different? I think usually there's a lot less anxiety about having the discussion, but there's still some. Usually they're coming with a much more open mind and hopefully real clarity about what's important to them. But we'll start the mediation as with any other. Talk about confidentiality and clarify that. Talk about the fact it remains voluntary and the fact it's an informal meeting. And they might want to agree some ground rules, that's up to them. It could be, not interrupting each other or, whatever for them, they'll know each other, they think might be helpful. And then each of them are given this space right at the beginning, as mediators, we often call it uninterrupted time, about 5 to 10 minutes, where they headline for the other person. What are the things they want to talk about in the meeting? Why it's important to them to talk about them, and what they really hope this meeting will achieve. And you hear that from both sides. So it effectively sets the agenda for the meeting. But also they can see where they overlap and the things they both want, but also what things may be different and require more discussion. And then we get the conversation underway. And I always feel I back out at that point, encourage them to really talk to each other. And my job as mediator is just to keep that a really safe space where both of them get the chance to say what's important to them to say. And, you know, might start with a nice sort of safe space, get them to talk perhaps about the organisation, what they particularly enjoy about their roles. You know, they've both been there over 5 years. I might say to them, so what's made both of you stay so long? And just get that going. And then we'll move into the more difficult areas, the upcoming changes, their hopes and concerns for those. And you see it as mediator, that conversation, they relax into it, they become quite candid and open, and they feel able to say what they want and need. I mean, the difference in this sort of mediation is palpable because you're not dealing with people blaming each other from the start because you haven't got a specific conflict to talk about. So it feels a really positive energy, and there's usually a lot of hope there. What you're aiming is that they come away with something in writing or not, that's up to them, where they've agreed, okay, how are they now going to approach something, the initial approach to whatever their issue is. They're clear about what each person's role is going to be in that. They've talked about how they're going to communicate and how they're going to keep in touch as things progress. They talk about what they're going to do if and when they disagree with each other or conflict seems to be starting between them. They might talk through how they're going to support each other and talk through how they're going to review this agreement going forward. And, you know, usually it ends, well, it certainly did here, with them both commenting on how positive and sort of liberating that conversation was. And then, you know, how they wish other people would use that and how they would like to use that going forward. So there we go. I mean, as mediator, it's just a delight because you come away buzzing in terms of feeling that positive energy that they've generated between them. Back to you, Lizanne.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, so we're just going to round it off with what other tools would we use alongside mediation, and there are a lot of psychological tools that you can use. This is a tool that Sarah and I use, which is See-Me behavioural profiling. You may have come across Myers-Briggs, DISC, it's Insights. This is very similar to Insights with the colours, but it's about individuals understanding their own characteristics, their own communication styles, their own preferences are working, but it's also about understanding how other individuals work and how to adapt their styles to get the best out of each other. So we use this tool to eliminate conflict arising and ensure that they are communicating effectively with one another, and that includes written style along with face-to-face. And it gives managers a strong footholding to be able to manage their team more effectively right from the start. Other psychological tools that we may use out there, there's hundreds, and we cover a lot of this in our mediation training. But it's anything that enables individuals to understand how conflict arises before it does, and how to adapt and get the best out of each other. So we use this alongside the mediation process. So that concludes our webinar subject matter today. We just wanted to cover off that we, as mentioned right at the beginning, do deliver mediation training, and there's two types of mediation training that we do deliver. We deliver a 2-day program which covers the basic levels of mediation skills, which are typically beneficial for line managers that are managing a team, or somebody that's interested in the mediation program. Starts off with the 2-day, and then you can do the additional 4 days at a later point. And we also do the 6-day program, which is the full nationally recognised qualification through OCN London and accredited by the College of Mediators, which gives you the full qualification to be able to externally mediate as well. We're running 2 programs so far this year. One which is a public program in June and one in October. Sarah's going to put a link in the chat box, so if you're interested in a public program, fill in the form and we'll make contact with you and just talk you through the program in more detail about what it involves and whether it's the right program for you. Sarah and I also go out to businesses and deliver in-house mediation programs. There's a number of businesses out there. We've literally finished one last week where organisations want to have an in-house program. They have a collection of sort of 6 to 12 mediators in-house and tackle conflict internally.
Okay.
Well, there you suddenly disappeared off my screen, so I thought, oh gosh, I've lost you.
Have I gone?
Sorry about that. So
have I disappeared?
No, you're there, Sarah.
Good, lovely. I'm sorry, I've come back. Yeah. So
Sarah's going to put the link in the chat box if any of you are interested in just chatting about the programme. As I said, June and October for our public programme, which we hold in the centre of Bath. It's over a 2-week period. We do 3 days the first week and 3 days the second week. Or if you're interested in running an in-house programme, or alternatively, we also do programmes for line managers who are struggling to have those difficult conversations. We also come out and do bespoke programmes for that. So that's the end of our programme, and I'm going to ask if anyone's got any questions.
I do.
Okay, perfect timing.
I do. No, Sarah, you can't do that. Don't leave me hanging. As an organisation, we're not hugely mature in this space, and I think kind of colleagues on here, Daniel, for those others that are a part of this group, I think at this moment in time we use mediation sparingly in conflict resolution, and we're finding that I think culturally people are going straight to what policies, what guidance they have in documentation, and we're seeing people raise grievances and process these grievances, get to conflict management, and then bring the mediation tool in. And the only other thing we do is we tend to spend a lot of money holding workshops, events where people are doing communication and behaviour styles, but none of it is linked up. And I think part of the point of coming today was to understand a bit more around that workplace mediation. Do you have any tools and techniques, or do you come across that challenge where, and have some tools and techniques where as leaders, Daniel and I can help coach our areas of the organisation to embrace mediation as an approach slightly more? So I'm thinking about when I talk to individuals in our part of our organisation, if you say the word mediation, we're talking to people that have come from a very practical firefighting background, and they're like, no, we can sort it, we can deal with it.
Yes.
And then the next time we see it, Daniel and I become aware of someone raising a grievance and having, actually, if we can coach a little more, we will absolutely spend the investment and support people, but trying to coach people to see it potentially is something that if they were to embrace earlier, actually it could help address it. Sorry, that was a very long-winded way of putting our problems down on the table.
I've got one initial thought, Lizanne, so shall I throw in with that? I mean,
Please
Joe,
do,
what I would
Sarah.
say is tear up your grievance policy, get rid of it, okay? And instead, have a policy which says how to stop disputes arising and what to do if they do. And that's the mindset you're looking for, because grievance comes from the mindset of you are to blame, you've done something wrong, and you need punishing. Yeah. But in this proactive space, you're saying, well, how do we stop it even starting in the first place? And then what do we do if it does? That gives you the options for just having a talk about it, facilitated conversations. And, I'm not hung up on the word mediation. If people prefer facilitated conversations, use it. Yeah. Use it. Because if it's putting people off, then it's no good. So that's my first thought. Over to you, Lizanne.
That was absolutely what I was going to say. And that's exactly what the organisation that we've just finished delivering an in-house programme for is. They don't want the formal processes. One of the gentlemen that was on the course, that predominantly seemed to be his day job, day in, day out, dealing with disciplinaries and grievances. And it wasn't constructed. What's the word I'm looking for? My brain's dropped out. It's
Sing it.
It isn't constructive in any shape, form, or manner to anybody involved. Even if you do have a grievance, nobody wins from it. Nobody leaves feeling positive from the experience. And so that's what they're trying to shift. They're completely shifting it and then putting in a dispute resolution policy in of let's look at this in a different way. And that's something we help them with. We've helped them put a board paper. We provide a free board paper to anyone that wants to do it, to put a case together for the senior leadership team of why they should be putting in a dispute resolution policy rather than a grievance policy. We help them do the figure work so that they can come up with how much they're spending on conflict at the moment. And then we support them with delivering the training, helping them put the policy in place, and then we do regular CPD with them to keep checking in. And what they should be seeing is that their grievances should be going like this, and the mediation cases should be going like this.
And I think that's a really great idea, because I think it's not just our grievances, it's our long-term sick, that return to work, like duties, that's where we have a lot of cost impact. And because of the skill sets we're focusing on, when you've got long-term sick, the lot bigger impact to the organisation is huge. And Daniel, you find the same in the FM space, don't you?
Yes, yeah, 100%. I mean, it was just on the call now. It's quite refreshing to see about proactive mediation. We've got some cases where you can see that interpersonal issue or a difference, not issue, but difference coming up. There's been no incident so far, or no sort of break in them working, people working together day to day. But it's either a matter of time, or it's just an issue that's never going to disappear until it's sort of treated formally. So I think it's been really positive to hear that actually, there's something that we can do beforehand to stop it from deteriorating in the future without something having happened, something sort of significant having happened.
And just that shift in language to dispute resolution.
Yes.
That's not where our organisation is focused. So I think being able to just change that language and being the first within a large organisation to potentially change the language would be really helpful, because it shifts people's mindset very quickly, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
There is a bigger piece of work going on with the government at the moment that I'm involved in with the College of Mediators, which is Keep Britain at Work. And a lot of it is that there's a high sickness absence, which was, Daniel, what you were alluding to. And actually the recommendations are bring mediation in.
Yeah.
That's going to be one of the drivers and the recommendations in there. So watch this space. And I'm very excited to be involved in that side of things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you're not alone. That's all I'll say. You are not alone in your
That's one bit
battle.
of good news. We leave it.
Does anyone else have any questions they'd like to ask? You're on mute.
I just realized I'm on mute. Yes, thank you. So it's more of a commentary, but also could benefit from your input. And I think the comment is down the line that sometimes I see that mediation, external mediation, is really confused with, well, benefits of external mediations are really not clear to the employers, and they sometimes say, oh, we mediated. Like when we go down the route of grievance and we are down in the process, I don't know, towards the end, they say, well, we did try mediation. Well, who did it? Oh, it's somebody talked to somebody. Well, they're not qualified. How, what did they talk about? We understand that line managers have an important role and they have their daily conversations, but that is not, they might involve diplomacy. It's needed for the work, but it's not mediation as it's seen. And I think the terminology is misunderstood and the benefits are misunderstood by the employers, because when you bring in somebody externally who is not involved, who understands how mediation actually works, who is objective, the benefit is there. But just saying, oh, somebody has talked to somebody, it really isn't mediation. So I think there is that terminology misunderstanding fundamentally from the employers.
You're so right. We hear this all the time. So Lisanne and I are often called in because somebody has mediated, or so they think, and made it worse. No, they haven't done that intentionally. They've done it they've come from a good place, but because they haven't got the skills or the understanding of what mediation truly is, they've done something else but called it mediation, and it's actually made it worse. And of course, if you do it at the end of a grievance, people are so damaged by that that you've missed the opportunity for a lot of the repair that can happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it just drives me insane when people do that. I mean, when we teach people to mediate, often we have, quite experienced HR professionals or managers on that who right at the beginning are thinking, I know this, I can do this. And then by the end of day one or day two, you get the confession, oh, I thought I was mediating. Actually, there's much more to it. I mean, you bring us very neatly onto what we think will be our next webinar, which we're putting in that space of why mediation skills are now an essential part of the toolkit for managers and HR professionals. I think that's where we're thinking we'll put the next one and cover that. People think they mediate, but they're not. So watch this space.
Thank you.
Great question. Great question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? No? Well, if you do, then feel free to reach out to us. And I just want to thank everybody that did attend today. I really appreciate it. This is our first time doing it via Teams. We've tried it via Zoom. So I'm glad that some of you managed to get on okay. And hopefully we'll see you at our next webinar.
Yeah, and if you want to chat, drop form is in the chat ready for you. So please do. Yeah, please do. And we'll talk further. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thanks very
Have a
much.
good day. Bye.
Have a good day.